I would like to say that you should all be smarter, but I don't know how could be smarter. In that we don't know anything about how to improve intelligence, and as well we don't really know anything about how to improve endurance either. But I can tell you that who are nutritious come up with a strategy for solving the problem that's ahead of them. If you want to know something about yourself, just set and say to yourself, you got to mean this, you got to be this right, this no game, this. What's one thing I'm doing wrong? That no, I'm doing wrong. That I could fix. That I would fix. You meditate that, you will answer, and it won't be one you want, but it will be necessary one. In this video, we will explore some of his best kept secrets for maximizing focus and achieving long-term success, so that you can study smarter, not harder. Now, I often tell people to fix the thing you repeat every day, because you will tend to think of those as trivial, right? You get up, you brush your teeth, you have your breakfast, you have your routines that you go through every day, where those probably constitute 50% of your life. And people think where there's money and need to be paid attention to them is no longer necessarily wrong. The thing you do every day, that's the most important thing you do. Hands down, oh, you have to do this duty, arithmetic. We make an average of 35,000 decisions every single day. We can eventually lead to decision fatigue, a state of mental overload that can impede a person's ability to continue making decisions. As by Aristotle and Lisa McLaren, the more decisions you have to make, the more frustrated you develop and the more difficult it can become. This mental exhaustion can lead to poor choices, procrastination, or even just a tendency to avoid decision altogether. One effective way to reduce decision fatigue is by simplifying daily routines, such as planning meals in advance, maintaining a consistent mode of, or establishing through habit. Additionally, breaking down complex choices into smaller, measurable steps can make decision making feel less overwhelming, helping individuals conserve mental energy for more important tasks. I can tell you that people who are nurturers come up with a strategy for solving the problem that's ahead of them, and then they do whatever can do to stick to the strategy and stuff. For example, if you sat down today or tomorrow for a couple hours, 3 hours, and you interfere in a Google Calendar, whatever you happen to use with a strategy for studying, and a list of when all your assessment are due and all that, and when you're going to sit down and study, then you won't be in a position where you have to cram for test hour a day, hopelessly, right before in an important exam. This is a very effective way of studying, by the way. I mean, first of all, people who cram for test hour say that they're studying for test hour, but it's really wrong because I can tell study for test hour. I don't have the power concentration that would enable me to do that for that problem every time. I can miss about 3 hours of intense intellectual activity before I'm ready done. A cerebral set in your frontier eastern hormone neurostats furthers by learning, where study sessions are spread out over time, can be just as effective as smart learning. This approach enhances memory retention and recall by encoding information into long-term memory. Research consistently shows that students who spend out their studying before able to an assessment taken weeks later compared to those who cram. In addition to by learning, getting enough sleep plays a crucial role in learning and memory. According to the sleep deprivation hinders the brain's ability to create new pathways for recently learned information, making it harder to retain knowledge. And it's also the case that if you study and then sleep and then study and then sleep and then study and then sleep and then study, you spend now, then you much more likely to remember. It is also much more likely to that, much more likely to remember if you try to recall the material and so highlighting that sort of thing. It's a very useful but reading, closing the book, summarizing what you read without opening. That was very useful, and the reason for that is that you're practicing remembering. And also you have to practice. If you're practicing memorization, you have to practice remembering. And you don't go over the over. That will help you with recognition memory, but somebody won't help you with recall memory. The best thing you can do is read and write every day. couple hours every day, write about things you find important, and see if you can discover what you believe to be true. And that will operation, and it's been valuably practical. Research published by Jackson V. Weinstein of Brigham Young University explore how reading literary fiction enhances our personal ability to understand others, a skill known as the theory of mind. This refers to the human capacity to recognize that others have beliefs and desires different from their own. In the study, participants were divided into groups and assigned different reading materials. Afterward, they took a test measuring their ability to perceive others' emotions. The results show that those who read literary fiction score significantly higher than those who did not read at all. So what seems to happen in story is that they distill. So they watch people watch people, and then they tell story about what they see, but they leave out the story, everything that's boring, hopefully. And then more story about certain thing get sort of allocated, and then maybe a rich writer come along write something really interesting, profound character transformations. And then you say, well, that's fiction. And then you say, well, that's not true because it's fiction. But then maybe that's not right. Maybe it's more than true because it was the truth. The truth is mundane reality, and you are already got that matter. What you want is the distillation of interesting experience. And you might think, well, what is interesting? Well, that says you don't know. That's the thing that's so cool. When you think about behavior, you tend to think about literal behavior, but a motivational state will doesn't happen or activate depending on the situation. Autonomic response. So, for example, when you when you are food deprived and you start to think about food and start to organize your behavior toward food as an intrusive world that where your body also prepares for food. And so it's useful to think about motivated status micro personality. According to an article from Cognition Today, titled The Scientific Truth Behind Fake It Till You Make It, mental imagery and actual perception stay common neural circuits, so they have different firing dynamics. This phenomenon is explained by his law, which states that neurons that fire together wire together. In other words, if you do something in association with something else, the two things will get interlinked at a neural level. This principle highlights the brain's ability to strengthen neural connections through repetition and association. For example, if one repeatedly visualizes themselves speaking confidently in public, the brain starts to reinforce the same neural pathways used in actual public speaking, potentially improving their real-life performance. Even when you're just walking to where you want to go, if you are successfully walking there, your brain trusts what you're doing. The circuits are that activated while you are doing it, and if you are what you are doing result in the result you desire, then the dopamine flows at those little neurons that active and make them grow and flourish and so as you work test something that's working. The circuit that is activated as you are practicing is but in dopamine and then that makes it stronger and that feels good. It's growth. It's part of positive motion. And so the positive motion moves you forward but also encourage you to develop a habit of that practice. And so one of the things I would really would say is don't make a habit of pursuing things that are going to be good for you because you build that into you. That's what happens if you become addicted to something, you're building a little monster inside you. That's real is there is after once you go despite everything else. That's a good outcome. In order to withstand suffering, lifestyle has to have some meaning. Okay, well, doesn't mean a bunch of things. It means that's part of the way that you overcome suffering is by making the suffering mean such something meaningful. And I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean that technically you make a mistake because you're suffering. You learn something about it. You don't make that mistake again. And I studied on immersive writing with 258 participants. Researchers found that those encouraged to embrace discomfort filled with a sense of achievement and were more to encourage aggressive journaling into their daily life, compared to those who were simply instructed to focus on the tasks. Perceiving negative experience as a setup boost is particularly motivating when boosted experience are delayed. Discomfort is immediate. This ally is suffering idea. This ally will learn something. Cause you wrong. Who cares? It make you suffer. You care. So you know what? Right now a little scheme of the world. What fashion you don't wear what you want. If you are especially if you choose zero, you between two teeth and you cry. And why is that? Because you don't know what you know where you are when you don't know what you do and it's time for some negative emotion. It indicates that you're wrong. And that's terrible in some sense because it's all must always mean that to learn require pain. Now I don't believe that exactly because people who are curious, and seem to be is there. That's on the right of learning just too fast. That hurts you. That will make you cry. But if you get the rest just right, just opening up enough novelty so that you can benefit from the possibility that give you the moment kick fundamentally. You can benefit from the possibility without being overwhelmed by the expected element of it. And you can tell when it's happening. This one I want to listen as I'm concerned.